5,000 professional Roman soldiers, an entire legion, marching north through the Scottish Highlands in full battle formation, their armor gleaming, their eagle standard raised high, the kind of military force that had conquered half the known world. Then the mist rolled in. When it cleared, they were gone. All of them. Not a single body ever found. Not a single weapon recovered. Not a single grave discovered. Rome never spoke of them again. The legion was erased from history. Its number was never used again. It's as if 5,000 men stepped into the fog and ceased to exist. That was 2,000 years ago. We still don't know what happened. This is the story of Legio Ninth Hispana, the Ninth Legion, the most elite fighting force in the Roman army, the legion that vanished without a trace. And here's what makes it terrifying. Rome knew something. After the Ninth disappeared, Rome built the largest wall they'd ever constructed in Britain, 73 miles of stone fortification, and they never tried to conquer Scotland again. For 300 years, the greatest military empire on earth looked at the Scottish Highlands and said, "No further." What did they find up there that scared them so badly? What happened to 5,000 soldiers that made Rome erase them from history? 5 theories, 0 answers, and ghost stories that have lasted 2 millennia. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the disappearance of the Ninth Legion is considered one of history's most disturbing unsolved mysteries, and why some people say if you walk through the Highlands on a foggy morning, you can still hear them marching. To understand why the Ninth Legion's disappearance is so disturbing, you need to understand what they were. Legio Ninth Hispana wasn't some auxiliary unit or provincial garrison. This was one of Rome's oldest, most decorated legions, founded by Julius Caesar himself during his conquest of Hispania, modern-day Spain. They had marched with Caesar across Gaul. They had fought in the Roman Civil War. They had served Rome for over 150 years. 5,000 professional soldiers organized into cohorts and centuries. Veterans who had seen everything, survived everything, won everything. Their battle standard, a golden eagle mounted on a tall staff, had never been captured. Their combat record was nearly flawless. When Rome needed a legion they could absolutely trust, they sent the Ninth. By 108 AD, the Ninth Legion was stationed in Eboracum, modern-day York, in northern Britain. Rome had conquered most of Britain decades earlier, but the far north remained unconquered. Beyond the frontier lived the Picts and Caledonians, tribes that had never bowed to Rome, tribes that killed Roman soldiers and disappeared into the mountains like ghosts. The Ninth had been sent to deal with them, to push Rome's frontier deeper into what the Romans called Caledonia, what we call Scotland, to bring order to the last unconquered corner of Britain. Around 108 AD, the Ninth Legion received their orders: march north, establish control, secure the territory, extend Roman civilization into the wilderness, standard orders, routine deployment, the kind of mission Roman legions had executed 1,000 times before across Europe, Africa, and Asia. 5,000 soldiers assembled their gear, shouldered their packs, raised their eagle standard, and marched out of York in perfect formation, north into Scotland, into the Highlands, into terrain unlike anything Rome had conquered before. They never came back. Not one soldier, not one scout, not one messenger, not one survivor stumbled back to York with news of what happened. 5,000 professional Roman soldiers vanished as completely as if they had never existed. No final battle report, no desperate message begging for reinforcements, no mass grave ever found, no battlefield site discovered, no archaeological evidence of their fate, just silence. Rome never officially explained their disappearance. The legion was quietly erased from military records. Its number, 9, was never assigned to another legion. In Roman tradition, legion numbers were only retired after catastrophic defeats or disgraceful conduct. Something happened to the Ninth that Rome considered catastrophic or shameful enough to erase them from history. But what? For 2,000 years, historians have searched for the answer. They still haven't found it. The last confirmed sighting of Legio Ninth Hispana is around 108 AD in York. After that, the historical record goes silent. No mention of battles, no mention of victories, no mention of defeats, just absence. Some later records mention military building projects in northern Britain that might have involved the Ninth. But by 120 AD, just 12 years after they marched north, the legion has completely vanished from all official records. When Emperor Hadrian arrives in Britain in 122 AD to build his famous wall, the Ninth Legion isn't there. They should have been. They were stationed in the region. They would have been assigned to the construction, but they're gone. So what happened during those years between 108 and 120 AD? Here's what we know about the terrain they entered. The Scottish Highlands are not normal military ground. Dense ancient forests, endless peat bogs, mountains that appear and disappear in fog within minutes, valleys that funnel you into kill zones, rivers that flood without warning, weather that shifts from clear to deadly in hours. It's terrain designed for ambush, for guerrilla warfare, for making large organized formations irrelevant. The Picts, the tribes who lived there, weren't like other enemies Rome had faced. They didn't build cities Rome could siege. They didn't fight pitched battles Rome could win. They didn't have supply lines Rome could cut. They fought like shadows, hit and vanish, ambush and fade. They knew every path, every valley, every hiding spot in terrain they'd lived in for thousands of years. Roman military tactics, perfected over centuries of conquest, didn't work in the Highlands. The testudo formation, the pilum volley, the organized advance, all the techniques that had conquered Europe and the Mediterranean were useless in fog-shrouded forests where the enemy appeared from nowhere and disappeared before you could react. Multiple ancient Roman historians mention trouble in northern Britain around this time. Unrest, rebellion, heavy casualties, but none specifically mention the Ninth Legion by name. It's as if even contemporary Romans were afraid to talk about what happened. Here's where it gets strange. In the 1960s, archaeologists excavated a Roman site in Nijmegen, the Netherlands, over 500 miles from Scotland. They found roof tiles stamped with Leg 9 Hisp, Legio Ninth Hispana. The tiles were dated to around 120 to 130 AD. Does that mean the legion survived? That they were transferred to the Netherlands after their Scottish campaign? Or does it mean only remnants survived, a few hundred men out of 5,000, sent to reinforce other units, the ghost of their legion's name clinging to them? We don't know. What we do know is this. Sometime between 108 and 120 AD, one of Rome's most elite legions ceased to exist as a functional military unit, and Rome never explained why. The mystery deepens when you look at what Rome did next. They built Hadrian's Wall, 73 miles of stone fortification cutting Britain in two, running from coast to coast. The largest, most expensive military structure Rome ever built in Britain. It took 6 legions, 6 years to construct. They built it right where the Ninth Legion had been stationed, right at the edge of where the Ninth had marched north and vanished. Official reason: to control trade, to mark the frontier, to establish a clear defensive line. But some historians see it differently. They built a wall because something in the north terrified them, something that made Rome, the greatest military power on earth, decide to stop expanding in Britain entirely? Something that made them say, this far and no further. Did that something destroy the Ninth Legion? For 2,000 years people have theorized, and every theory is disturbing. Theory 1. Total massacre. The most obvious answer. The Ninth Legion marched into Scotland and walked into a coordinated ambush by the Picts. Caught in narrow valleys, separated by fog, unable to form proper battle lines, they were systematically destroyed. 5,000 soldiers killed over days or weeks of running battles across the Highlands. Ancient sources mention a great war in Britain around this time. Roman historian Cornelius Fronto, writing decades later, mentions that during Emperor Hadrian's reign, large numbers of soldiers were killed by the Britons. Large numbers, not specifics, just losses. If the Ninth Legion was massacred, it would have been one of Rome's worst military disasters, the kind of defeat emperors tried to hide, the kind that got governors recalled and records burned. But here's the problem with massacre theory. No mass grave has ever been found, no battlefield site, no archaeological evidence of a major engagement in Scotland from this period. You can't kill 5,000 armoured soldiers without leaving physical evidence. Weapons, armour, bodies, fortified camps, something. Where is it? Theory 2. Slow destruction. Maybe it wasn't one battle. Maybe it was death by 1,000 cuts. The Ninth marches north, establishes camps, begins operations. But the Picts don't fight a pitched battle. They attack supply lines, ambush patrols, raid camps at night. The legion slowly bleeds. 50 men lost here, 100 there, scouts who never return, sentries found dead at dawn. Over months or years, the legion shrinks. 5,000 becomes 4,000, then 3,000. Eventually what's left isn't a legion anymore. It's broken units, too damaged to function, quietly absorbed into other legions or disbanded in shame. Rome doesn't advertise this because there's no single catastrophic defeat to report. Just a slow, humiliating erosion of their finest soldiers by barbarian guerrillas. Easier to erase them from history than admit what happened. This theory fits Rome's silence. But still, where's the physical evidence? Where are the abandoned camps, the scattered graves, the lost equipment? Theory 3. Disease and desertion. Maybe combat had nothing to do with it. The Ninth marches into the Scottish winter. Disease rips through the camps. Dysentery, pneumonia, infections from minor wounds. Half the legion dies not from picked spears, but from illness in the cold, wet Scottish climate. The survivors, demoralized and cut off from supply lines, face a choice: march back south through hostile territory with half their strength, or desert, melt into the British countryside, become civilians, disappear. Romans viewed desertion as worse than death in battle. If significant portions of the Ninth deserted, Rome would absolutely erase them from history. You don't build monuments to cowards. This explains the silence and the shame, but it doesn't explain the complete absence of archaeological evidence or historical records of mass desertion. Theory 4. Secret transfer. The boring theory. The one that says nothing mysterious happened at all. Maybe the Ninth Legion wasn't destroyed. Maybe they were simply transferred to another frontier. The eastern provinces, the Danube, Germania. Roman legions moved constantly based on military needs. The tiles found in the Netherlands support this. Maybe the Ninth left Britain, served elsewhere, was eventually disbanded or merged with another unit during routine military reorganization, and the paperwork was lost over 2 millennia. This is the theory many modern historians prefer because it requires no mystery, no catastrophe, just administrative, mundane reality. But here's what doesn't fit. Rome retired legion numbers only after disasters or disgrace. The number 9 was never used again. That suggests something went very wrong, not routine transfer. And Roman bureaucracy was meticulous. Legion movements were documented extensively, yet there's no record of the 9th being transferred anywhere after 108 AD. None. Theory 5. Something else. The theory no one wants to say out loud. Ancient Britain was considered the edge of the world by Romans. Beyond it lay mystery, fog, the unknown. Roman soldiers stationed in Britain reported strange things. Fog that seemed alive. Sounds in the forest that weren't animal or human. Standing stones older than Rome itself that seemed to watch you. The Picts were described in Roman accounts as ghost-like, appearing from nowhere, disappearing into mist. Some Roman writers describe them as not entirely natural. What if the 9th Legion encountered something in the Highlands that Roman military doctrine had no answer for? Not tactics, not disease, not desertion, something else. Something that left no bodies because there were no bodies to leave. Something that made Rome so terrified they built a wall and never went north again. We can't prove this. It's speculation, ghost stories. But here's what is true. For 2,000 years, people in the Scottish Highlands have reported seeing Roman soldiers. Full legions marching in formation through the mist. The sound of armor and marching feet where nothing is visible. Sightings concentrated along old Roman roads that lead into the mountains and abruptly stop. In the 1940s, a group of hikers reported seeing an entire Roman legion marching single file along a ridge before vanishing into fog. In the 1970s, a farmer found a Roman military dagger buried in a peat bog miles from any known Roman site. In 2010, amateur archaeologists claimed to have found the battle site where the 9th fell. Professional archaeologists investigated. They found nothing conclusive. Every few years, someone claims to have solved the mystery. They never have. The 9th Legion remains lost. 5 theories, 0 definitive answers, and the silence of history where 5,000 men used to be. Before we talk about the searches and what's still out there, I want to ask you something. Which theory do you believe? Do you think the 9th Legion was massacred in battle, slowly destroyed by guerrilla warfare? Or did something stranger happen in those mountains? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what you think happened to 5,000 Roman soldiers who just vanished. And if you found their golden eagle standard buried in a Scottish hillside today, would you tell anyone? Or would you wonder if some mysteries are better left alone? Hit subscribe if you're the kind of person who wants to know the dark truths history tried to bury. Now let's talk about the people still searching for them. For 2,000 years, people have searched for the 9th Legion. Archaeologists have excavated dozens of Roman sites across Scotland. They found evidence of Roman presence, forts, roads, coins, pottery, everyday artifacts of military occupation. But they've never found evidence of a catastrophic battle involving 5,000 soldiers. No mass burial. No destroyed camp, no battlefield littered with Roman equipment. It's bizarre. You can't erase 5,000 armored men from history without leaving physical evidence. Unless you can. In 2015, archaeologists at the University of Edinburgh proposed a theory based on modern forensic analysis. They suggested the 9th wasn't destroyed in a single battle. Instead, they were systematically hunted down across Scotland over years. Small groups ambushed, camps raided, units picked off one by one, bodies buried in scattered, unmarked graves across hundreds of miles of wilderness, slowly being reclaimed by nature. This would explain why no mass grave exists, because there isn't one mass grave. There are hundreds of small ones spread across the Highlands. But even this theory has problems. Where are the scattered graves? Where's the abandoned equipment? Where are the coins, the pottery, the artifacts that soldiers lose and leave behind everywhere they go. It's as if the Ninth Legion walked into the mist, and the mist swallowed them whole, leaving nothing behind. After the Ninth disappeared, Rome changed its strategy in Britain completely. They built Hadrian's Wall and gave up on conquering Scotland. For the next 300 years, until Rome abandoned Britain entirely around 410 AD, they never seriously attempted to push north of that wall again. Why? Rome conquered Germania. They conquered Dacia. They conquered parts of Mesopotamia. Difficult campaigns against fierce enemies, but Rome didn't quit. But Scotland. Rome looked at Scotland after the Ninth vanished and said, no, we're building a wall and staying behind it. What did they learn that made them so cautious? Some historians point to practical reasons. The terrain was too difficult, the economic rewards too small, the tribes too scattered to make conquest worthwhile. But others see something else. Fear. Whatever happened to the Ninth Legion scared Rome enough to abandon expansion in Britain, to build the largest fortification they ever constructed in the province, to treat the Scottish Highlands as a place where Roman legions go to disappear. In the 1970s, British author Rosemary Sutcliffe wrote a novel called The Eagle of the Ninth, a fictional account of a young Roman officer searching for the lost Ninth Legion and their missing eagle standard. The book became a bestseller and sparked renewed interest in the mystery. To this day, amateur archaeologists and treasure hunters search the Scottish Highlands for that eagle standard, a golden eagle on a staff, the kind of artifact that would be worth millions and would definitively prove what happened to the legion that carried it. No one has found it. In 2011, a comprehensive archaeological survey of Roman Britain was published. It catalogued every known Roman site, every artifact, every coin find across the entire province. The survey confirmed what everyone already knew. There is no archaeological evidence that definitively explains what happened to the Ninth Legion. They're just gone. The mystery endures because the absence of evidence is itself evidence of something unusual. You don't lose 5,000 soldiers without a trace, unless something highly abnormal happened. So the searches continue. Every few years someone claims to have found the answer. They never have. The Ninth Legion remains lost, and the ghost stories persist. If you walk through the Scottish Highlands today, you might pass through areas where the Ninth Legion marched 2,000 years ago. Old Roman roads that lead into the mountains and stop abruptly. Valleys where foundations of Roman marching camps can still be seen. Hillsides where on foggy mornings, locals swear they hear the sound of marching feet and clashing armor. Maybe it's wind through the valleys. Maybe it's imagination. Maybe it's the human need to explain the unexplainable. Or maybe the Ninth Legion is still out there, somewhere in the spaces between what we know and what we can prove. Lost, but not gone. Vanished, but not forgotten. Still marching through the mist, looking for a way home. 5,000 Romans walked into Scotland in 108 AD. None ever returned, and 2,000 years later, we're still asking why. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some disappearances don't have explanations. Some ghosts never rest. The Ninth Legion is all three. Whatever took them is still up there in the Highlands, waiting in the mist. And Rome knew it. That's why they built the wall. That's why they never went back. That's why they erased the Ninth from history. Because acknowledging what happened would mean acknowledging something Rome couldn't defeat, something Rome couldn't explain, something that made the greatest military empire on earth say this far and no further. The Ninth Legion walked into the fog 2,000 years ago. They're still there, still lost, still searching, still marching, and on quiet, foggy mornings in the Scottish Highlands, if you listen carefully, you can still hear them. I'll see you in the next one.